Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, October 7th. It's in the rest of the church, it's the memorial of Our Lady of the Rosary. For the Diocese of Toledo, it's the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. And if you're at Rosary Cathedral, since it's the title of the cathedral, it's a solemnity. But it's our principal patroness for our diocese, so we celebrate it with a little bit more solemnity than the rest of the church. But Our Lady of the Rosary is a wonderful memorial or feast for the entire church. And I know I had been asked to talk a little bit about the Rosary, especially during this month of October. So I thought today, because I think it's going to take me a couple days to go through all of this, that I would start with just talking about today's feast, October 7th. It is, like I said, the memorial of Our Lady of the Rosary, but at one time it was called Our Lady of Victory, and it goes back until the 16th century. And so, as you can understand, on the internet there is a lot of different information, but I went back to look and see if I could find a nice little summation of this feast day, where its origins and its connection to the Rosary. And I decided to use this little summary that's written by Father Reginald Martin, who's a Dominican friar. Dominicans have a special devotion to the Rosary. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow as we get more into the history of the Rosary. But I figured he would be he was the former director of the Rosary Center. So I figured he would, a Dominican friar who was a director of the Rosary, a place called the Rosary Center, would probably be a pretty good source for a lot of this information. This goes back to a naval battle that goes back to, again, like I said, to the 16th century, so in the 1500s. And he starts by talking about the fact that over the centuries, Venice became a center for art and culture in Italy. But when Constantinople fell in 1453 to the Ottoman Turks, Christians no longer dominated the valuable Mediterranean trade routes to the east. 4 generations of Venetian merchants tried to maintain neutral relations with both the Christians and the Muslim forces, but they grew frightened when the strategic port of Rhodes fell to the Turks in 1522. So 50 years later, in 1570, when the Turks demanded the surrender of Cyprus, the Venetians appealed to Pope Pius V, who assembled a multinational naval expedition that engaged the Turks at Lepanto, near the Bay of Corinth, on October 7th, 1571. This Bay of Corinth, if you think about kind of, I think it would be called the Ionian Sea, but it's kind of this bay that's formed to the west by Italy and then to the east by Greece. So that's the area of the world, of the Mediterranean and of the world that we're talking about at this time. Now, and I do remember that this multinational force that Pope Pius V assembled, they called it the Holy League, which I always find is kind of an interesting name. Sounds like something we'd see in a Marvel comics or one of the Marvel movies or something like that. But the Holy League was assembled by Pope Pius V to confront the Ottoman Turks, who were wanted to kind of invade Europe. So the Christians were greatly outnumbered in this battle. They had only 214 boats and about 80,000 troops. The Turkish force totaled 120,000 troops, and they had 225 galley ships and then also about 50 smaller boats. So they've got almost 300 boats to the little over 200 boats that the Christians had at this time. The battle occurred at a time of transition in naval warfare, and Lepanto stands as the last great naval engagement in ships powered by oars. Every school child knows how the battle ended. The weather, which favored the Turks at dawn, changed, and Christian forces were able to overwhelm their enemy. 9,000 Christians died in the battle, but 12,000 were released from slavery. in the Turkish galley ships. Turkish losses were far greater. Even by modern standards, these are amazing statistics for a single battle fought within a single day. So think about that. You had almost 500 boats coming together to fight a single battle in a single day. Pius V, who was a Dominican friar, prayed the Rosary throughout the battle and attributed the victory to the intercession of the Blessed Mother. Hence the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, which first was called the Feast of Our Lady of Victory on October 7th. As this Dominican friar says, naturally the feast is dear to Dominicans and their friends, but the pontiff wasn't the only one who prayed that day to the Mother of God. The Christian troops are said to have prayed the Rosary throughout the night before the battle, and some sources say that the rhythmic repetition of the prayer thoroughly frightened and demoralized the Turkish host. There's fighting at Lepanto had no doubt that God accomplished remarkable results from these less than promising beginnings. And so, when we celebrate this feast today, we don't, as Father Martin says, we don't concentrate on the battle, but by focusing on the prayers that won the battle. So, Pope Pius V organized kind of this Rosary Crusade, we might say, or this prayer crusade of the Rosary, asking for our Blessed Mother's intercession at that time of turmoil. So, it's a good probably reminder to us too that we kind of still live in a time of turmoil. As I said today at Mass, I don't know if the church is ever not in a time of turmoil, but we also see it obviously with the pandemic and with some other and just everything going on, the political situation in our country, even throughout our world. So it never hurts to pray the Rosary. I think I was reading that Pope Leo XIII had a great devotion to the Rosary, and he said, all throughout the Church's history, whenever the Church has been faced, kind of with heresy or with scandal or with the threat of, worldly powers coming against it, Christians have always turned to our Blessed Mother by the Rosary to help. So during this month of October that's dedicated to the Rosary, especially today on the feast day of Our Lady of the Rosary, our principal patroness here in our Diocese of Toledo, might be good to get our rosaries out and pray. And if you want to do, I know that today on like Facebook and YouTube, the USCCB sites, Archbishop Jose Gomez, who is the president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB. He's leading a rosary at 3 o'clock this afternoon, kind of a national rosary on this Our Lady of Rosary Day. So if you have access to that, or you're near a computer or your phone at 3 o'clock, you can pray the rosary along with Archbishop Gomez and everybody else throughout our country who's kind of tuning in for that. And then we too also are having a holy hour this evening. It's not dedicated to the rosary, but we have adoration going on all day, and we have our holy hour at 6 o'clock this evening. So that'll be back up on YouTube and Facebook also this evening too. So, all right, well, that's a little history of the feast day of Our Lady of the Rosary and the connection it has to the Rosary. Pius V asking people to pray for that, pray the Rosary, and asking God to help them in their battle against the Ottoman Turks. So like I said, tomorrow and maybe even into Friday, we'll see. I'll do more of maybe kind of a general history of the Rosary during this month of October. So hope everyone has a very blessed day. Let's try and continue to look out and pray for one another. And I pray that God blesses you abundantly this day. Have a great day, everyone.